Hello again. So this time something about the craziness that's going on in the USA, plus my view of the following about antisocial people, if you and empathy poor people. If you do not understand people and or you do not care about other people, then you should not be allowed to make decisions about their lives. This means that people like Vance, Trump, etc. should not be allowed in power. Putin also, of course, not. There should be psychological tests taken, and these people should be disallowed immediately. These people are the ones who start wars, throw the world into chaos, run companies into the ground as well, and then later they say that they've done nothing wrong. It was all circumstances. It's what's also crazy about this situation. So you have these people. This is an antisocial nut job. This is a narcissist and also antisocial nut job. They do not even realize that what they're doing is showing how antisocial they are. It's like people criticizing me, for example, but in most cases, if they're criticizing you, people who criticize others almost always only tell you something about themselves, about their views on life, about being antisocial, for example. It doesn't need to. It's really, really uncommon that criticism is valid and objective. That it's valid is already rare, but objective almost never. And these people only make themselves look like morons, which they are, and antisocial, which they are, and they throw the reputation of the USA, of course, down the drain, or they flush it down the drain. The only one who behaves normally, and what you see also here's very, very telling. People are saying, yeah, Zelensky should have shown respect. He should have not shouting, and there are titles that there was a shouting match. There was no shouting. Yeah, from these two, he was saying that he was talking loudly. The ranch hand said, yeah, no, he isn't. Yes, he was. You cannot deal with people like that. Really, the USA needs to be treated like a pariah state at the moment. And one of the issues I have with psychology, and I'll go to that, and also with something related, some conversation I had in Zaporizhia in 2016 with a woman from Nigeria who was studying medicine in Zaporizhia. And I was just wondering what she was like. I asked her some things, and I'll get into that a little bit later. First, psychologists, why don't they publicly analyze these people and denounce them? And state, as I state, that people with an antisocial personality in particular should not be allowed in any positions of power. That's really moronic. And there's this fact that you are not allowed to. I think it's in the Netherlands as well, maybe it's worldwide, but in the USA in particular, you have this, that you're not allowed as a psychologist to analyze people in public figures from a distance. You need to do it in person, which is bullshit. That is what this woman from Zaporizhia also said. You can only analyze someone if you meet them. Absolute bullshit. The more information you have, the more accurate the analysis is. And you have, for example, this guy, Todd Grant. I think he's a wimp and slightly narcissistic because he repeats the doctor in his title and on the thumbnail of all his videos, which has absolutely no value in my view, because these people don't understand people. But I'll get into him and others sometime later. Yeah, there's a lot to do. Trump, I did not get into. I mentioned a book that states he's a narcissist and psychopathic. The combination. I think he's not completely a psychopath because he has. True psychopaths don't have facial expression, or they also don't. It's really obvious that what they are. He also isn't, but he's absolutely antisocial, extremely antisocial. Some people say, yeah, he's religious. He's not religious. He does not care about any wisdom of life in the Bible, for example. He cares about customs and keeping things as he likes them. That's all. So that's are two things on the right, that you have conservative, keeping things as they are, as you want them. You like things, so you want to keep them that way. So I was talking on the train in January, was it the 7th, from Kiev to Przemyśl, Poland, with two guys. One was a student who he was studying in Poland, and I talked to him a bit about the positive features I saw in Ukraine, and he was impressed. I think he did not really hear that from other people, the good points of the country, and he did not realize it himself. I showed him a different side, and I tried to do this with other people. Did not really work. Most of the people, for example, in Zhytomyr in 2017, where I talked at an English language club, they were only interested in learning language, and it seemed they wanted to leave Ukraine. So that's why they were interested in learning more English. They did not understand my point of view at all. In any case, I was in the train. I was talking to another guy who was Danish, I think. We were talking all the time about Sweden, but I think he was Danish. He was buying with other people four-wheel drive vehicles and delivering them to the Ukrainian army. And I talked a bit about various things such as psychological issues, etc. And I said about what is it? Muslim women that for example, Jordan Peterson mentioned. He mentioned in one video, I watched a little bit of it, and I thought, why doesn't he understand it? He mentioned that Muslim women working with feminists against the patriarchy. But he said, yeah, being Muslim is already a much bigger problem. Their women are being oppressed. So why are they working together? It took me 3 seconds to figure this out. And then I realized an important principle in life. Actually, it's known to be important, but there's no connection being given. And I'll explain everything in my project later. So it took me 3 seconds, and he did not know it. And I said, why don't you understand this? It's all around you. You see it everywhere. It's like with other things as well that psychologists don't understand. Why don't they understand this? Why? Whereas they are living in a laboratory where all the experiments are being performed all the time for them. Open your eyes and you see how everything works. It's crazy. Yeah, there are many issues in psychology. I talked also with a woman on the train about this before that, when I was going back from Uzhgorod, where I bought a computer, to Kiev. So this is on my page. You can go from this to this from the critical pages, so critical and analytical about society. Example of psychological analysis: woman from Nigeria studying to be Dr. Psychopath or very close to it. One of the issues I mentioned, Putin is a psychopath. He said, no, he's a narcissistic sociopath. And I thought, the difference between sociopath and psychopath is irrelevant. In my case, it's not important. Also, here, these terms are used interchangeably by psychologists and in reversed meaning. So there are different. One uses it for this, one uses it for that, and third uses it as interchangeable, as having the same meaning. Meaning there are 3 meanings. Well, unless these psychologists fix their terminology, it's a waste of time to distinguish between it, of course. And I said to her, by the way, psychologists should analyze people publicly, especially the people who are, of course, public figures and leaders of state in particular. She said, no, that's not possible, and you need to see someone in person. That is a fairy tale that's being taught in psychology. And she was studying medicine, but without doubt, she had some psychology, because that's given in medicine, I know that. And I talked with a woman long ago from Kiev. She has a cool sense of humor, but at some point she just disappeared. I think from her personality, I think it's okay that we're no longer in contact. It's same, not so bad as with the actress I dated in Kiev. She was actually a psychopath. But this woman also had issues. And she mentioned she did something about she studied something about literature, but she had some psychology. I don't know if it was mandatory. I think it was mandatory. So you don't have these things, I think, in the Netherlands, where, for example, if you study mathematics, then you only study mathematics. If you study physics, then you study physics plus mathematics, because you need the mathematics for physics. No psychology, no issues about society, etc., or no language. You don't need that. She said that she'd done a psychology course, and one of the parts in that was discovering yourself, what you're like. And I know this woman definitely had a course in psychology, because that's always the case with medicine. And of course, there is some self-discovery going on. I'm sure she had that, and she knows from herself that she is extremely emotion poor, close to a psychopath. I'm pretty sure about that, because I said to her that people who do not understand people, psychopaths in particular, should not be allowed in any positions of power. But my view is and was that people who do not understand people and or who do not care about other people should not be allowed in any positions of power. She disagreed. I thought, what the F? The conversation flowed on, and I could not really stop it. I'm trying to steer the conversation with this nut job and getting information from her, because that was what I was trying to do. And it's difficult to do everything. In any case, I later thought more back about it, and I knew, yeah, of course, she does not want it, because she would be disallowed from being such things, from being in positions of power. But it should be done. A psychologist should publicly analyze anyone who's in public, who's important, like Putin. They, of course, it is in a sense done, because they know he's a psychopath. And there's a book about him, that he's a narcissist, that he's sociopathic, psychopathic, and yes, he is. This guy is also psychopathic, almost, he's not quite a psychopath, but close. Total a-hole. And such people should be disallowed from power. Psychologists should stand up about these type of people, about anyone in power who is antisocial, and they should also advocate, by principle, of not allowing such people at all in any positions of power. They don't do that. This is one of the reasons why I'm disgusted with psychologists. They don't understand people. They do not do preventative stuff, because psychopaths are the ones who start wars, who run companies into the ground. They're the most destructive people there are. They don't do anything about them, these idiots. And someone here said with this video, let's see. I live in Germany. In our schools, we learn how Hitler rose to power and what methods he used to do so. Of course, Trump cannot be compared to, but what can be noted and what is similar is Hitler also clearly stated what he would do. Yes, that was very interesting. He also already makes it clear, but I say that always about psychopaths. And people say, yeah, for example, a guy who was in Serfontaine, a guy who was in the director of Airport Schiphol for 10 years or so, always in the news with his manipulative bullshit stories, always lying, never doing what he promises. And then people say, yeah, he's a wolf in sheep clothing. And I thought, what the hell are you talking about? He always tells you exactly what he wants and what he will do. The same thing with Hitler, same thing with Trump. They're not smart. And they're not smart because they're antisocial. I mean, this connection also seems to be not understood by psychologists. But IQ is something different than intelligence. Trump never made a secret of his admiration for autocrats. And he also said that the American population only needs to vote one more time. I fear that if you, the American people, didn't begin to ensure that this government is put out of power now, Yeah, you will have no opportunity to prevent the transformation of the USA into a dictatorship. I always thought it was impossible. However, from what I've learned, I see that this is indeed happening. Well, the issue is, for example, decrees instead of the law process, and this has happened in the UK as well, by the way. Those are the left wings, which are idealists, have been in power, just sidestepping the process to approve laws in a way to get them directly approved. In the Netherlands, it's been done a little bit, not as much, and I don't think it can happen in the same way, but it happened, for example, with the Chinese flu, that there was curfew. It was not constitutional, according to people. A law case was started, and then the judge was a wimp, and he did not want to give a judgment, which was absolutely insane. But the government then responded, and they made an emergency law and got it approved immediately by the first chamber, as it's called, which approves laws. But in this case, it was like pushing through a law because it would benefit them the most, because they are antisocial. They are not antisocial. They are old dudes, retired politicians, etc. And those are the type of people who are mostly affected by the Chinese flu. Same as the normal flu, by the way. So they would just push through the law. That was absolutely ridiculous. But anyway, so autocracy, dictatorship, can it happen to the USA? Well, I recalled reading a biography about Einstein, and there was talk about Gödel, Kurt Gödel, the mathematician famous for the incompleteness theorems, and he said, yes, it is possible, and Einstein did not really want him, I think, but here it is stated, Gödel's loophole, supposed inner contradiction. Yeah, I've not examined the American Constitution. Does not interest me at all, and I have other things to do. But maybe at some point I could look into this. The loophole would permit American democracy. Note that it's called a democracy, and people say, yeah, it's not a democracy. The Constitution is actually written so that it's not a democracy. Doesn't really matter. It's Constitution, Federal Republic. There are no actual democracies. The only one that ever existed was in Athens, in Greece. To be legally turned into a dictatorship. Gödel told his friend Oscar Morgenstern about the existence of the flaw. Morgenstern told Albert Einstein about it at the time, but Morgenstern, his recollection, never mentioned the exact problem as Gödel saw it. Maybe he did not state it to anyone. Could be. Gödel's loop. It's been called one of the great unsolved problems of constitutional law. Well, why? You can go through it and examine it. Then you should find it. I mean, what's... The problem is lawyers have a type of thinking which is different. A relative of mine studied some law, and she said, yeah, you have to be crazy to study law. A type of thinking that she did not like. If you go through it with a mathematical mind, as he did and as I would do if I were to do it, then I would look at it differently, and I could probably find it. If he found it, then it's probably there. Well, probably. Definitely. Definitely. Come on. So he was studying to take his American citizenship. He came across what he described as an inner contradiction. And this was interesting. So Einstein was there. Witnesses would normally remain outside for the citizenship. Einstein's celebrity was involved. The judge had administered the oath of citizenship to Einstein. All three men were invited in. In the course of the examination, Foreman asked Gödel what the government of Austria was. It was a republic, but the constitution was such that it was finally changed into a dictatorship. The judge commented. This comment is what I remembered from many years ago, maybe 20 or so more. I read it when I was maybe 15, 16, I think, the biography, and it stood out to me. I remembered it, so I looked it up and found this article on Wikipedia. The judge commented that this could not happen in the US, and Gödel responded, "Oh yes, I can prove it." You can actually interpret this in two ways. "Oh yes, I can prove it, you're right," or "Oh yes, I can prove it," in the sense of, "Oh yes, I can prove that it can turn into a dictatorship." But in any case, I think in the circumstances it is logical. The what is meant is actually this: I can prove it that it can turn into a dictatorship. This may not be correctly written. Nature of the loophole, yeah, speculation. I don't know why people just go through it logically. Anyway, Article 5. Maybe Gödel probably did not write it down as either, because otherwise it would have been published, would have been found. But yeah, the USA turning into a dictator, I called it already several days ago, a mafia state with the extortion of trying to get things from Ukraine for what they supposedly gave Ukraine, which is not true. They gave about 120 billion in value of equipment, but it was old equipment that was going to be phased out anyway relatively soon. So the US can replace them with new stuff, better stuff. And it gave, some of them are pretty good stuff, like the HIMARS, etc. But a lot of also is older stuff. And not 350 billion. It's also not 500 billion. Zelensky wanted something for the future. He wanted the past to be repaid, which actually, if you look at the 1994 Budapest Agreement, the USA should not request anything because they guaranteed Ukraine's safety in exchange for giving up its nukes. And people talk about, they were not Ukraine's nukes. Yes, they were on Ukraine's territory. Secondly, there was no distinction really between Russia and Ukraine in Soviet Union, which means you cannot say, they were Russian. They weren't. Thirdly, a lot of the engineers for many things were Ukrainians. For example, the Soviet space program, the big push behind it was Korolev from Zhytomyr, Ukraine. And this is also why the Soviets did not reach the moon, because Korolev died and the push was gone, and the one who understood everything, what to do and what to fix, the creative push. It's like if Werner von Braun had died in the USA, then probably the US would also not have reached the moon. Maybe this was interesting. If you want to hear something about related topics or other topics to analyze or to see what happens for what reason, you can put a comment and I'll see what I can do. It'll be interesting for me as well to have some feedback on what maybe the things that I haven't thought about yet, the topics that I've not thought about yet. That's it for now. Bye.